Hello and welcome back to the Schooner Pod. I'm your host, Bobby Howard. With me, we got Jameson Maxwell. And later on, we're going to bring on our good friend, Boatin Blake, to preview TCU. But, as you might know, there has been a lot of news going on this week. Been a crazy week so far. And the Spencer Rattler, Caleb Williams story just keeps heating up more and more. A lot of rumors yesterday about whether or not he would, if he transferred, whether or not he would practice. He skipped practice on Monday, apparently, or was released from practice on Monday. But Jameson, things are ramping up. The OU Daily story. We got to cover this before we dive into TCU. So, Jameson, what's going on?
Yeah, there's a lot to dive into. I was saying don't be surprised if Spencer Rattler is the quarterback on Saturday. I'm going to take a step back from that, right, in honor of TCU. Obviously, it looks like Caleb Williams is going to be our starting quarterback. From what you're not going to give your starting quarterback off on Monday, no matter what scenario. I know that he needed that day off, and Spencer's dad said he was feeling ill. That's not what it was. He just needed to legitimately take his step back and kind of gather himself. There were some rumors that he cleaned out his locker. These are all hearsay. There's still not a lot from that, but he was practicing and he got half the snaps first team that Caleb did, and he was throwing to the backup. So I think that's pretty telling. And now media is canceled for the rest of the week, so we won't learn anything more unless we get our boy senior correspondent Ty back up on the top looking through the windows through the practice facility.
Yeah, we at OU Daily, if you haven't heard yet, is the reason behind this. They had some student reporters who were watching practice from a different building. But, of course, our intrepid reporter, Ty Lee, was also there on the scene. We just didn't want to talk about it because, I don't know, we're not really journalists.
We don't break news here. You go to the Schooner Pod article, breaking news. No, we don't. We just like to comment on stupid stuff. But, yeah, it's really...
And who'd believe us even if we did say it?
Honestly, right? Like, go look at our reviews on Apple iTunes. Go look at us. We've been here a while. No, but seriously, in all honesty, this is good. This is good. I was a little bit worried from Lincoln's press conference the other day because he was kind of fumbling around. He was really defending Spencer Rattler to the core. And you can take a couple little Easter eggs from that press conference. First of all, he said the biggest thing that is, if I was talking, he was talking all in hypotheticals, but if he would have just said Spencer Rattler's name, it would have made sense. Like if I have a transfer quarterback, or if I'm looking to get a transfer quarterback and they quit on their team mid-season, I wouldn't want to go after them unless there are some really pressing circumstances. I know a lot of coaches around the league would also think the same way, which was a direct jab at Spencer of don't quit on this team. We need him as a backup really bad because we joke about Ralph Rucker, Bobby, but is Ralph Rucker the guy you want if Caleb Williams goes down?
No, not at all. And look, I know people are like, oh, well, Baker was a walk-on, but let's be honest. Baker was a 1 in a million, already proven commodity at Texas Tech. You know what, my guy? I love Ralph. I would be scared to see him out there. And that's the case with most true backups. Do you remember Joey Halsley having to step in for Sam Bradford at Texas Tech in 2007? Yeah. They usually don't work out well. So having a guy like Caleb Williams where you can legitimately bring him off the bench and have him perform, that's a rarity. So let's not act, him or Micah Bowens are nowhere near the quality of a Caleb Williams, of a Spencer Rattler. So having both, at least through the remainder of the season, sort of a Trevor Knight, Baker Mayfield situation, if you may, that's huge. So I don't know. Lincoln was probably, I'm with you. I think Lincoln was kind of subtweeting there.
Oh, he was. And the other thing he was talking about is the absolute savage question from one of the students. I mean, I'm sure that the coaching staff is so fed up with the student base right now at OU. This girl asked a question pretty much implying Spencer Rattler isn't liked around campus. So what actually makes him likable that you're saying that you can see behind the scenes, which was just out of left field. She goes, I might be reaching here, I think is how she started it, which was just so crazy. I mean,
if you start a sentence with I might be reaching, you're reaching. So I don't know what the hell she was talking about there.
She could have been right. A lot of people think that.
Yeah, I mean that's what I've heard, but again, I don't really know the guy. I can't say anything. People say a lot of stuff, but
Yeah.
yeah, no, it's been interesting though. It's been a wild saga, and the amount of drama around a 6-0 undefeated OU football team that just beat Texas it's crazy. But that's just kind of the name of the game, and let's be honest, Jameson, from the summer on, have you seen a crazier OU football season with just more drama from the start with the SEC move to Spencer Rattler's struggles to Caleb Williams coming in? This has just been bonkers.
No, this is reality television is what it is. We've had a couple injuries, but other than that, all the stuff on the field, that point was pretty calm. And then this Caleb Williams, Spencer Rattler stuff, it just broke everything open. It is absolutely crazy, but hopefully we'll have some solidarity as we see on Saturday. I was worried about a 2-quarterback system. I'm sure there still is a chance that we could see some Spencer Rattler. We saw that Lincoln Riley has that propensity to do that, bringing him in for the 2-point conversion, because Caleb hasn't taken as many first-team reps. There's a lot of plays that they've ran over and over through the spring and into the season that they've practiced, and that Caleb doesn't know as well, and he doesn't know the intricacies of the routes, because Lincoln Riley's playbook is pretty complicated. So I would not be surprised to see Spencer a little bit here and there, but Caleb should be the quarterback coming out on the first snap versus TCU.
Yeah, and I mean, let's be honest, a lot of the performance against Texas might just be catching Longhorns off guard. They were not prepared for a full game or a full half of Caleb Williams. Mm-hmm. So I'm interested to see how these other teams game plan for him. Obviously, Gary Patterson has at least a reputation for being a great defensive coach. That's kind of been the past couple years, but we'll get into that with Blake in a little bit. So we'll see how it goes. It's going to be an interesting remainder of the season, no matter what. But okay, Jameson, but let's get into Boatin Blake. Afterwards, we'll kind of touch a little bit because we have some big Cruton news, but definitely don't want to bury the lead here. This is TCU week, and around here, it's always a bit of a blood week, always fun week. It's not really a real rivalry, but at least in this friend group, it's pretty fun. So, and not only that, it's been amplified by the whole SEC move. So let's go ahead, bring on our pal Boatin Blake. Blake, welcome onto the pod. It's always good to have you on pretty much every year to talk TCU. But I know this year it just means a little more.
Yeah, it definitely does. There was 2 games I had circled on my calendar this year: is the Texas game and the OU game, and sadly Texas, because of whatever offensive scheme came out of our coach's head, that you only run Zach Evans about 12 times with the ball. We lost that game, but I think we have a shot. I think we have a really legitimate shot, and that's not what I would be saying probably 2 weeks ago. But after that Texas Tech game last week, I got some confidence back in our system, and I'm like, we could maybe win this. So I'm confident. I'm confident. I'm happy. I actually feel good that I feel like I can trash talk a little bit this weekend, because I don't think we're going to get stomped.
Literally a week ago, you were celebrating the fact that you could just give up on the Frogs, and here we go. You are right back into it.
Oh my gosh, yes. I thought, after the Texas loss, it's over. Our offense is incompetent. We don't run the damn ball. That's all we need to do. That's what we do. The best thing our team can do is just run. Wouldn't do that, and then last week, Gary finally put it through his head, and all he did was run, and we just ran down their throat, so...
Yeah, no, I mean, and let's just get right into it. Have a couple questions here. Yep. So, that running game, what, like you said, kind of has revitalized the Frogs. It's clearly been the thing they've needed to change. How are you all the way in on TCU now after that absolute romp over Texas Tech?
I'm not all the way in, but I feel confident versus a team like OU that has kind of shown, TCU's defense and OU's defense have been reminding me a lot of each other lately. Besides the second half of that Texas game last week, OU's defense was willing to give up the big play. They could get gashed really easily and basically have to rely on their offense to score enough points to keep them in games. And I think OU does a better job defending than TCU, but it gives me confidence versus a team like OU when we both have those same struggles, and I think we match them, maybe a little bit less, but match them on the offensive talent side of the ball. So it's like when you're putting two similar teams together with one having some locker room, not like struggles per se, but a lot of turnover, a lot of media attention surrounding them, I'm like, does that give us the necessary edge that like we can maybe win this one? Like maybe we can. Like OU has been, everybody says they've been frauds all year long, that they're not as good as, they're just barely skirting out games. Why can't it be us? Why can't we finally turn the tables of OU finally losing a close game for once this year and come out on top and maybe just revitalize our chances to make it to Arlington come December. So
there you go. It's been 7 long years, Blake, for sure. Jameson?
Yeah, let me ask you a question, Blake, because just looking at this game, obviously you said OU's defense is suspect, and you've watched all of our games and watched them closely, obviously. But you've been kind of, clamoring for Zach Evans getting the ball more. But is Zach Evans going to win the football game for TCU, or would it be Max Duggan needing to win the football game for TCU?
You kind of have to have both because, like, Zach Evans is going to do his thing. Like, the man he's going to go to the draft next year. Easily, he's gone after next year. So, Zach Evans is going to be able to rip apart OU's defense, and I think probably how they're going to game plan that is just stack. They are. Like, he's been ripping apart everybody that he's come across. Like, he's really good. He averages, like, 6 or 7 yards after first contact. Like, he can just run over people, but if OU's smart, they stack the box against them, and that's where it kind of comes into the hands of Duggan, that Duggan has been really bad throwing like deep and intermediate passes this year, and it's something he's always struggled with, and we haven't been able to game plan that. But like what I'm just hoping for is we just keep on running Evans so much, OU kind of pulls in. That's when we get those 1-2 deep shots that we need. Hopefully kind of opens the door for us. But I expect like Evans is going to have to rush the ball probably 20, 30 times, I think, for us to win this game.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. Zach Evans is one of the best players in the Big 12 by far. This is a game where you have to game plan for Zach Evans in the same way we game planned for Bijan Robinson last week. You got to give him the majority of your attention, I think. He's an incredible talent. I will say I think that OU's defense is pretty well equipped to stop the running game. While Bijan Robinson did have these big breakaway plays, which Zach Evans does very well, OU kind of stopped him on almost everything else. So it'll be interesting to see how they kind of can keep that up. But Evans definitely going to be a problem for the Sooners. And I gotta ask, so Jameson kind of touched on Duggan. I want to know, what's your level of disappointment in Duggan this season? I know early on, you thought he'd take a leap, didn't really take that leap. Are you on a scale of 1 to 10? Where are you at with Duggan and your level of disappointment, I suppose?
I'd say like on a scale of like 1 to 10, 10 being most disappointed, I'd put it probably about a 6 or a 7, because it's like I did expect, like, we see games like last year versus Texas, and he has those 1 or 2 games a season where he just completely like takes over the game, where he'll rush for 200 yards, throw for another 250, like is a true dual threat kind of prospect. But he only has about 1 or 2 of those games, and we haven't seen that. Like, I expected that to be the new norm, but it just never, it's never gotten there. But, like, the one thing I will say is, like, he's limited the turnovers this year. He's really smart with the ball, so it's not like he's making dumb plays. I just don't think, like, he just kind of is what he is. He's a passer, good runner, good on his feet, but he I wouldn't say hasn't lost us any games this year, which is a good thing. So that lowers my disappointment level, but I had hopes of us really like competing for the Big 12 title this year, and he just obviously, him not taking that next step kind of put a damper in that.
Yeah, it's definitely been hot and cold for him, and he is a type of quarterback that does give OU troubles. He extends the play. We have a lot of problems with finishing. I've put that in the podcast for the whole time. He will extend the play, but will he make the right play moving out of the pocket? I want to kind of talk to you about your wide receiving core because our outside cornerbacks are by far the weakest point in this team. We had a couple of other problems and they seem to be shoring up, but that cornerback position is looking a lot worse right now. Who's a wide receiver to really look for in this game that could be roasting one of our, Jaden Davis, our weak link on defense?
Yeah, so if he plays, he didn't play last week versus Tech, but it's always been Quentin Johnson. Like, Tay Barber, maybe, but Quentin Johnson, he's the man. Like, I think, elevates Duggan so much more because of his just big playability, and he can go up and get the ball. He can play. We play him in the slot, play him in the outside. We can move him wherever just because he's just kind of a freak athlete like that. So he's lived up to the hype to me. I feel bad for him because of kind of Duggan's struggles with the deep ball. He doesn't get the ball as much and doesn't really get that same hype that maybe some of the other receivers in the Big 12 get. But I love Quentin Johnson. I think he's going to be good. I think hopefully we got to get the deep ball established, but that's what he's really good at. So.
Yeah, and the deep ball, is a point that we're also weak at. We have Delaren Turner-Yell going down with a hamstring injury last week, and whenever you go down for the hamstring for the second time, I can almost guarantee without a doubt 99.9% he isn't going to play in this game because you came back too quickly from the hamstring injury. Now they're going to give him the full 2 to 3 weeks. So our safeties are also a little weak too. And Quentin Johnson is a guy that was very highly recruited coming out and was a Texas commit and was a late flip to y'all. So this guy's got talent. Y'all have got some pretty high-end recruits right now in that offense around Duggan if y'all can put it together.
Yep, and that's been the thing with us this entire season is it's the two ships passing in the night that over the past few years we've had these great defenses but no offense that you could possibly score points with, so eventually we just break, and that is out the window this year. Gary Patterson's defense sucks. We've been getting beat any which way. It's hard to even come up with a way that we're good at defense because we've been bad about just about everything. But with that sacrifice of the Gary Patterson defense, we finally get a somewhat competent offense that is clicking a little bit. And really the only thing that hinders it is our play calling and our coaching, which has always been an issue with us on the offensive side of the ball, but it actually looks more competent than it has in years past. But of course, those two couldn't align. We couldn't have a good defense and an offense at the same time. We had to have one has to suck so bad that it completely hamstrings our team for most of the year.
I feel like I ask you this every some odd years, and every year before a season, I feel like this is a year TCU is going to break through and have one of their, just TCU level years where they're, fringe top 10, competing for a New Year's Six bowl up until the end. But it just hasn't happened in a while. So I want to know, do you think Gary has kind of lost his magic? Do you think he's kind of taken no pun intended, yeah, okay, pun intended, has he taken a step back from that elite tier of head coaching into, just kind of okay?
I think he still can be an elite coach, just what he does on the X's and O's sides of the ball. But I definitely think we need to start thinking about who we want to move on to next, kind of bring him in our system, because the problem with Gary is he has some Lincoln Riley tendencies, but Lincoln Riley has the better he has the better offensive play calling, which where's the game's going. He's younger. I think he kind of gets some of these NIL things a little bit better, but Gary doesn't understand really NIL very well. He's like Lincoln. He hates the media, doesn't want any practices open to anybody. He has been driving. I read a post this morning on our boards and it was perfect. It's for 4 straight years, we're either too injured or too young. And I'm well, Gary either has the worst strength and conditioning coaching staff or he pushes them too hard in practice and is destroying these guys' bodies. And that's always been an issue. So I do think the problem is we can't move on to anybody right now, get somebody that's just as good as Gary, but he's definitely starting to lose his step when this game is going so offensively minded. And he's really we're recruiting a Power 5 team on the offensive side of the ball, but defensively, we're still not there yet. We're still getting our 3-star guys, but I think Gary needs to take that next step and be we need some players. At the end of the day, with these 5 wide offenses, we're doing 5 different wide receivers versus an OU at Texas, where those are 4 5-star guys. We can't be throwing out CJ Caesar out on the side that's getting blown every single time. He's a 2-star basically. there's a cap with that. There's a talent cap, and I think we're really seeing it on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, let's talk about the defense side of the ball with TCU, because last year y'all had a very good secondary. Tomlinson and Trayvon Merrick, and then who's the other guy that got drafted from TCU in the secondary?
So it was Adarius Washington.
Yeah, but two of those guys, NFL guys, and Tomlinson getting looks. But it looks like y'all were getting gashed, especially whenever people watch the SMU game. That was ugly. A little bit better versus Texas Tech, but Texas had its times. I know you said earlier that there's really no strong point, but is y'all secondary or pass rush or run defense? What is your strong suit?
I would say this is so hard. We've been beaten, like, it's not even like Texas and SMU just beat us in every facet of the game. Like, they ran all over us, they threw all over us. Like, our only bright spot has been Hodges Tomlinson, and the fact that he has that big playability, and we saw it last week in Tech with like a pick six. He's really good and kind of a ball hawking guy, so he's a good shutdown corner, but like, you just hope that Caleb Williams kind of tests him and he can get some big play. But besides that, it's been bad. We've had some key injuries, like Noah Daniels, who is probably, besides Hodges Tomlinson, our top corner back in 2019. And he's only seen the field a little bit versus Texas. And Gary's been weird about whether he plays him or not, coming back from his injury. So it's like, we do nothing right. Like, there is no, like, even though we blew out Texas Tech last week, we still allowed, I forgot how many points, 28, 30 something points. Like, we're still getting gashed. It's just we have to outgash the other team. So it's hard. I can't compliment this Gary defense. It's that bad. Like, it's really that bad.
Yeah, and I got to ask, when you watch Oklahoma, and you've seen them a couple times, of course, what are a couple points you see out of the Sooners that you think are particularly bad matchups for the Frogs? What are they going to have to kind of shore up in order to make this a competitive, good game and potentially get the that classic, Gary road win in Norman?
Yeah, so like the big one, I think I'm sad that Caleb Williams has to switch like right before us, because what I think Caleb Williams lacks right now in just like accuracy, he gets the ball down the field, which is something Spencer just like wasn't throwing the top off of people. And it's like, that's what I saw like time and time after again versus Cal, not even a good offensive team at all, total defensive, just was throwing 40-yard bombs like and got up on us like 2 or 3 touchdowns in the first 10 minutes of that game. And like, they're not a vertical team like that. They don't do stuff like that, but you could beat us over the top. And so I was hoping for Rattler, just because it's like, it's easy for our guys to contain. Spencer Rattler doesn't like to throw it over the top. Just push him in, and then like hopefully he makes a mistake deep down the field. But like, I think Caleb Williams will definitely like go after that weakness of just being able to just throw deep bombs on us. But like, the other thing is like that Gary needs to do is just create some sort. We've got no QB pressure this year, but find a way to blitz or do some schematically that just confuses the crap out of Caleb Williams, because although I think he's the better quarterback, we're getting a guy in his first career start, and so he doesn't have that same emotion coming off the Texas, like fighting back. Like, I like that. So I want Gary to throw out some weird schemes, blitz him a lot, put him on his feet, because I did notice like he does throw very well. Like, he's young. He's a gunslinger. He'll throw it into probably some dumb, like he'll have those dumb passes. We just got to create the pressure in order for that to happen.
Gotcha. Yeah. It seems like that, your biggest strength is your coverage, but over the top, is your biggest weakness as well. So the defense, there's not a lot to say.
Yeah, no, there's nothing. Like, this defense has been absolutely horrible. Like, it's been horrible. Like, that's the best way to describe it. We can't stop a nosebleed. And it's just like, there's no way, like, we can't even figure out with like teams like Cal, teams like SMU that really are single-faceted teams. Like SMU, much more pass, but we let Ulysses Bentley come out, run all over us. Then when we decide to step up and stop the run, they just throw it over the top. So it's just not been in sync all year long, and it's like there's no good things because it's like we get no pressure, we don't defend besides one guy on there that's gonna go into the NFL. We can't defend the pass. Like our linebacking core, we usually have one 2-star converted quarterback that's our middle linebacker that's just tearing it up and just getting stops in the backfield. We don't have that anymore. So it's just like no pressure plus no pass defense. It's like, what do we do? So that's why we just gotta like outshoot teams basically.
Well, and we've seen TCU with a vulnerability in the running game. Like you said, Ulysses Bentley had a field day. Bijan Robinson did very well. And now you have Kennedy Brooks, who is starting to come into his own as a very, very good running threat. So, you know, that I honestly think Brooks in that running game, that'll be very important for OU to kind of steady things out for Caleb, you know, help him out a little bit, lean on that, and let the rest come to you. So I think Kennedy Brooks here is ripe for yet another big game.
I love watching Kennedy Brooks because it's the weirdest phenomenon. Every time I see him, he looks like he's running so slow, but I know he's outrunning people, but he just looks slow, but obviously really quick. That's how he all won the game, is he just literally just out-sprinted everybody. But like I really like Kennedy Brooks, and I think he's really, and I'm glad OU kind of, like, I felt like coming into the year, y'all were really worried about running back depth and where that room was. So he's obviously come out as an easy RB1 for y'all, and one basically helped win, was just as essential of a factor as Caleb Williams with him. So he was awesome last week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sounds a lot like to me, just talking to you so far, that this is another thing that a lot of people have been coming after Oklahoma's Achilles heel of controlling the pace of the game. And if you can take over this pace and you can therefore win it, if you hammer Zach Evans a lot and you get slow drives down the field because Max Duggan can't throw the ball down the field, and you take possessions away from us to make sure your guys' defense isn't on the field, maybe you can win a close game at the end. So really, what I'm getting from this is our key is really in our defense. You know, our offense is going to be babied because if Caleb Williams is our starting quarterback, we know Lincoln's not going to pull out all the stops because he hasn't gotten a lot of first-team reps. So I think we're expecting like all of this craziness from Caleb Williams like we saw in the second half, but Texas did not scheme for him. So there's a lot to change here. So I think a lot of it comes down to the OU's defense versus TCU's offense. Am I correct here?
Yep. I would say that's really where it's going to rely on, because like I see this as like very similar offenses. So I think if the defenses don't hold, it's just going to be a shootout. So it's like we're probably not going to be able to stop anything. And I actually trust OU's ability a little bit more, just a tad bit more to stop TCU. But I'm like, for an 11-point spread, like, my God, like this could easily be whoever has the ball last, and that's the winner of the game. So I think this one's a lot closer than the spread seeming. Like, I'm going to sprinkle money line, of course, like, just so I don't want to be trying to cover those spreads. I want to win the game. And so it's going to be, but TCU has to learn, like we've seen it in years past, like the key here is to go slow. But of course, TCU will probably come out the first drive and try to run like a super hurry up and do all this. Like, that's not how we're going to win this game. They just can't. There's always one coaching key that they're missing that they just don't do. And like, that's why we lose dumb games that we do.
Quick thoughts on the offensive line play before we kind of start wrapping this up. That I feel like is going to be crucial. And that's, I feel like, what has separated teams like West Virginia and Kansas State as opposed to Texas is their lines played very, very well. And OU was able to get back into the game because the likes of Perion Winfrey and Nick Benito and Isaiah Thomas were able to get a lot of pressure on Casey Thompson in that second half and get Texas off the field quick. So do you think that offensive line is kind of on par with those sort of other teams? Do you think they're pretty good at – do you think they are good enough to control the pace?
Yeah, I think definitely a lot better. Like the last 2 years, our big problem was offensive line play, that we had basically nobody there. And then when we had nobody there, those guys got injured and we had to play even worse people. And so like that's why I always was like Duggan will take the next step once we have an offensive line because the man's always running for his life. He has no time. But this year, like offensive line, we've had great pass block, obviously good run blocking. Like we've been able to really dominate up front for Zach Evans. And like it obviously helps that he can just plow guys himself. But our offensive line is not where our struggle is this year, which is wild because that's where it's been the past 2 years. But we got a lot of transfers in that area. Guys have developed. We've had bad injury luck on defense, not necessarily on the offensive line. So it's like, I wouldn't put us in top tier, like maybe like West Virginia or something, but it's not like in years past where Duggan had like 2 seconds to throw and OU was just like swallowing him and couldn't even develop a play.
Last year's game, y'all's offensive line was absolutely putrid versus us. We absolutely worked it. But if I recall, over the offseason, y'all got, was it Easy from Memphis?
Yeah,
Is he playing well? And then I think y'all got a couple, maybe one more transfer?
I think we got one more transfer, but yeah, Easy's been awesome. I think he's playing left tackle for us this year. Like it's been night and day better. That's why I am disappointed in Duggan because he does have time now to make passes and like we do have a competent offensive line that's not putting the pressure on him all the time. So,
all right, Blake, before we let you go, TCU 3-2. Still have a lot of ball ahead of them, a lot of tough road matches. They have to go to Oklahoma State, go to Iowa State as well. I got to ask, what is the ceiling for the Frogs? Your optimistic ceiling for TCU here, and what do you think? Where do you think they're going to end up by the time the season's over?
Cheez-It Bowl.
Or like I would love to make it to Arlington, like slip in the back door somehow. I don't think, like, if I'm being realistic, that's probably not going to happen. But I could see our ceiling being like 9-3, maybe losing against OU, OSU, or Iowa State and beating 2 of those 3 because like. I see the good thing is like I see flaws in all those teams. Like OSU has no offense. Iowa State is just weirdly not what they were last year, even though they returned everybody. I don't know what their flaw is. It's just like they're not as good. And then OU obviously being maybe a little defensive. Plus, we get the benefit of Caleb Williams' possible first start and some of the tumultuous nature around that. So I would say like a good ceiling is like 9-3. I would say probably low is still 7-5. That would be not like covering our win total this year, but that it would be a disappointing 7-5 because we've definitely taken strides on the offensive side of the ball, and it would basically we'd be ending up just how we have the last 2-3 seasons and found a more creative way to get there.
Yeah, there's still a lot of room for progress for sure. And for real, last question I gotta ask: better Cheez-It Bowl location? The original location in Phoenix or Orlando? I feel like TCU is just destined to return. And an Orlando Cheez-It Bowl, that ain't bad. That's like I believe the 3rd best bowl game you can get. So TCU, that's kind of where I see them, really turning on the Jets and getting there. If they show what they did against Texas Tech, I could see it. But I gotta ask, would you rather do Orlando Cheez-Its or Phoenix Cheez-Its?
Since we've already conquered, we've already made Phoenix Cheez-Its one of the best bowl games of all time. Let's do it again at a different one. Let's take Orlando, have the Cheez-It gauntlet that we're putting up the best matchups. And I just love like a Florida man aspect about the Orlando Cheez-It Bowl. We could get some good crowd shots, get a little weirder there than maybe someplace that's a little more buttoned up like Phoenix. But it wouldn't be like, if we got to the end of the season and like we were 7-5, 8-4, and we got to the Cheez-It Bowl, like I wouldn't be sad necessarily. I just hope it would be against. I hope it'd be against like a crazy weird team again, like Cal. Like that's. I just hope. I pray.
For sure. Yeah,
that game was so much fun. Like if we're gonna be bad, I want to be that. I want to be that bad.
It was one of my favorite games I've ever watched. By far.
I mean, it was glorious, and hopefully you just throw TCU back in the Cheez-It Bowl, and magic will unfold. So I would love to see it. Well, Blake, thank you so much for coming on and talking with us. We'll make sure to catch you for the weekend spread as well, and I hope you wake up on Saturday feeling the cheesiest, man.
Thanks, man. I'm ready for Saturday.
Absolutely, always a pleasure, and just can't wait for that game. So catch you soon.
Sounds.
Oh no, I cut him off. Sorry about that. Okay, sorry about that, Blake. thanks as always to Boatin Blake for his contributions as well. Jameson, we are just about wrapped with this. However, we would be completely remiss if we didn't take a trip to the Cruden Corner, one of the biggest ones we've had in a while. Hit the video.
David,
Yes?
what is this, David?
This is a
Cruden Corner with Jamison.
Everybody dancing.
Oh, that's nice.
Seems like every little thing is going Oklahoma's way. So let's talk some Cruden and Gabriel Brownlow Dindy, which 247, just their regular ranking, had him as the number 3 overall player in the nation. And therefore the best one of the best defensive linemen in the country, number 10 in the composite, commit to Oklahoma in a battle between him and us and Texas A&M. His dad had just taken a job in College Station, but his parents were both OU legacies. So there is a little bit of, uneasiness, and he said he didn't even make his decision until a couple of days ago. So that is a huge get for us because of him and how good he is. His pro comparison on 247 was Ed Oliver. So that's the kind of style that you're getting. And this is not just so big for him. Let's talk about what's moving forward with this. He is, developed some relationship with the recruits that he's taken visits with on his own time. And a guy who's committing here pretty soon and on the 18th, so in 5 days, is Gentry Williams, the athlete defensive back out of Booker T, Washington. And things are looking pretty good for us there too. So look for another Oklahoma big-time 4 or 5-star commit from Gentry Williams. And then the last name after that, when we get those 2 guys in the boat, still big if, but looking pretty good, is Chris Mcclellan out of Owasso, Texas, a guy that has just flown up the recruiting boards. We're in a battle between us and Florida, and we're looking a lot better there. And he has a very close relationship with Gentry, 2 Tulsa guys. And we may be leading for him too. And then the last guy to keep an eye on this defensive side of the ball is Marvin Jones Jr., not the one that's playing wide receiver in the NFL, but he's playing in Florida, and he's a really good edge rusher, very high-end 4-star that's also highly considering us too. We're starting to pick up some big-time momentum on the defensive side of the ball on this recruiting cycle, and it does not hurt at all that a lot of the college football, is going in turmoil around us, and we're at least still undefeated.
It's a good sign. It's a good sign for sure. And I've always talked about we've always talked about how much stars matter, and I think there is no position where that where it really matters absolutely more than any other one than the defensive line. Because if you get a Dindy type of guy where they're big, they're fast. There are very few human beings that can do that.
Exactly.
Just physically, just gifted. So that's a huge win. First defensive line commit since I believe 2006 with Gerald McCoy. So I mean, this is just massive, and something to be legitimately excited about, and definitely hoping that sticks for sure. You never know with the bagmen these days. But especially Texas A&M ones.
He seems like he's the son of a preacher, and he is a really stand-up guy, and he just seems like he has loyal characteristics. We never know with 17 to 18-year-olds, but he just doesn't give me vibes as a guy that would commit and then, go back on a commitment. I understand we've been burned so many times, and, good people change their minds, obviously. But I just feel like he wouldn't be making this decision and locking himself in now. He could have gave himself a couple more months to do this, but I feel pretty good about this, and it seems like he's found a home in Norman.
Well, that is very good to hear. Very exciting news for sure. All right, Jameson, that's about all we have. But hey, if you want to hear more of us, and you haven't checked in on our previous episodes, we got 2 already up this week. Our full OU Texas recap, as well as sort of a mid-season review that just released yesterday. So we got plenty of content for you right there. And hell, we're not even done yet. We still have the weekend spread coming out on Friday. So make sure to stay tuned there. But if you want to watch it live, hey, we release these live on Twitter, on Facebook, and our YouTube channel. every single week. So make sure to stay tuned to that. Subscribe there. Follow us wherever you want to interact with us. Ask us questions. We love that sort of stuff for sure. Hey, if you liked it, make sure to leave a review. 5 stars. We're 5-star men. Bringing that good old Jim back. And yeah, we'll appreciate it if you write something nice, something good. We might read it out on air. So, anyways, well, that's all we got. We will see you next time with the weekend spread. Have a good weekend, and Boomer Sooner.